Negotiators reach agreement during climate talks in Bonn. What they decided should be done in the wake of Copenhagen. Also, there's a new number 2 in the world's wind rankings, the country that is now closing in on the top-ranked U.S. And another mining organization plans to join the accident investigation in West Virginia. Who wants to be there when crews re-enter the Upper Big Branch mine?
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
And good afternoon, I'm Tyler Suiters in for Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for this Monday edition of the Energy Report. The first official climate talks since Copenhagen are now over in Bonn, Germany. And there is agreement to some extent to report to you. UN negotiators now say they will hold more talks, all designed to address the shortcomings of the COP15 meeting last year. Now, all that emerged from the much anticipated world talks back in December was the Copenhagen Accord, the result of last-minute negotiations led in large part by President Obama. As for what was decided in Bonn this week, there will now be 2 more rounds of official discussions before the COP16 meetings in Mexico. Each of those rounds will be 1 week. Also, this man, the person who is leading the U.S. delegation in Bonn, Jonathan Pershing, he says the Copenhagen Accord should be part of the upcoming chair draft text. But some developing nations in Bonn question the role of that accord in future climate talks. Renewable energy investments, they are surging yet again. Bloomberg New Energy Finance reports that first quarter global investments in wind, solar, and geothermal power, they surged 31% over the same period in 2009. Home to some of the biggest growth, according to the report, China. The Global Wind Energy Council now says that country passed Germany as the world's second largest producer of wind energy. China's total capacity is now 25.8 gigawatts, just ahead of Germany's 25.77. Both of those, though, are well behind the world leader, the United States. This country's capacity is 35 gigawatts. That represents 36% of the world's total. Today, federal investigators are arriving at the Upper Big Branch mine in West Virginia. And now the group behind state mining safety rules wants a bigger role in the accident investigation. The West Virginia Board of Coal Mine Health and Safety is holding an emergency meeting tomorrow. The leaders want to join the federal team underground during that investigation. Meanwhile, the bodies of 9 of the 29 victims from last week's accident are still trapped inside the mine.
We've got to find the answers to what caused it and make sure that whatever it takes, it never happens again.
And the company that owns that mine is getting an endorsement of sorts from Standard & Poor's. The ratings agency is now advising its investors to buy shares of Massey Energy. One of S&P's stock analysts raised Massey's rating to buy from hold earlier today. He does not expect the accident to have what he calls a material effect on Massey's finances. There is a new power producer from the Mirant RRI energy merger. The 2 wholesale power producers say they are joining forces in a $1.6 billion stock swap deal. The result is GenOn Energy, a new entity with about 25,000 megawatts of generating capacity across the country and total revenue of more than $4 billion. GenOn will be led by Mirant CEO Edward Muller until 2013. That is when Muller will retire, he says, and RRI's Energy current CEO, Mark Jacobs, he will then take the helm at GenOn. Elsewhere, Royal Dutch Shell now has the go-ahead to begin exploratory drilling in Alaska's Beaufort Sea. EPA has issued a permit covering air pollution from the drill ship and supporting vessels that will drill 2 exploratory wells off of Alaska's northern coast. The agency says that Shell needed approval to use an ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel as well as other technological advances. Shell has been waiting 4 years for approval. Environmentalists and native groups, however, have worries nonetheless that CO2 emissions from the drilling will endanger people and wildlife in a region already affected by climate change. Overseas, once again now, in China is upping its stake in the Canadian oil sands. Subsidiaries of Sinopec, that's China's second largest oil producer and top refinery, they are buying a 9% stake in Canadian oil sands producer Syncrude. That stake had been held by ConocoPhillips, and technically it still is right now, but it is selling that stake to Sinopec for $4.65 billion. The move is part of ConocoPhillips' plan to sell about $10 billion overall in company assets by 2011. The more than 9 million customers of TVA are now on the verge of yet another rate hike. Tennessee Valley Authority is enacting a 1% increase beginning with next month's bills. That follows a nearly 6% increase this month and a more than 5% increase back in March. TVA says a fuel cost adjustment credit that customers have been receiving since October continues to dwindle. According to TVA, fossil fuels account for 60% of its electricity generation. Also, electronics giant LG says it is now doing a bigger part in cutting greenhouse gas emissions from its company. The South Korean-based company says it will invest $18 billion over the next 10 years in plans to cut its GHGs and also develop energy-saving products. Bloomberg reports LG plans to reduce emissions by 50 million metric tons a year during that time frame. But LG is not disclosing its current GHG output. Its home, South Korea, is now Asia's fourth largest emitter. It has announced plans to cut emissions by 30% nationwide by 2020. As we wind up this Monday here in the nation's capital, here's a look at some of the events scheduled for Tuesday around the Washington, D.C. area. First of all, 10:15 a.m. Eastern, CFTC Chairman Gary Gensler is speaking at the Council of Institutional Investors 2010 Spring Conference. His topic is reforming the OTC's derivatives market. That's taking place at the Omni Shoreham Hotel at 10:30 a.m. and Clean Skies News will be there. Following that, George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs presents a discussion on the future of nuclear energy to 2030 and the implications for global governance. Also at 12:30 in the afternoon tomorrow, SAIS is holding a discussion on the EPA perspective regarding climate change. Clean Skies News will be there for coverage of that event as well. And that is this Monday edition of the Energy Report. Thanks for joining us here in the Energy News Center. I'm Tyler Suiters. You can check in with our team anytime through Twitter and Facebook or email us here in the nation's capital at this address, contact@cleanskies.com. From all of us here at Clean Skies News, we're glad you're with us. We'll see you throughout the day and back here tomorrow.